Well, it's a very good evening to you on a Saturday evening and a West Ham voice show. Imagine that. When there's nothing better to do on a Saturday evening, and it's like you've spent the day out in the sun enjoying it and taken the daughter's dog out for a walk. Yeah, got caught again doing that. You just kind of think to yourself, well, what shall I do for the rest of the evening before I settle down and watch a film with the other half and give her some of my time? Well, why not do a show? Why not do a show about West Ham United? And why not do a show about something that's quite topical at this moment in time? And of course, the news about the interview I guess it was an interview, if you want to call it that. So I think it was probably a text message by a reporter on Hammers News and texter Sullivan, and Sullivan replied. And they were probably leading questions saying, what would you do about this? And what would you do about that? And then a story breaks out that it was an interview. But anyway, let's not worry about how the information arrived. Let's debate what that information actually said. Now, I've got to be honest. Welcome to you, by the way. Thank you for joining me on a Saturday evening. And I will come to your comments later on. I promise I will. But let me start by saying that I've got to be honest, that I'm genuinely surprised that West Ham fans are surprised that David Sullivan isn't planning to sell his stake in West Ham United anytime soon. Now, before anyone starts to sort of put in the comments box, let me try and explain what I mean. This isn't about me defending Sullivan. It's not about me wanting him to remain as a shareholder. Far from it. And it certainly isn't me trying to rewrite history or pretend that the last 15 years have been rosy. None of all that. It's simply me looking at this situation in a sort of a business perspective. And trust me, I'm no business person, but the business logic rules here immensely. Because whether you like it or not, and I know exactly how many supporters have wanted him gone for years, just about every single West Ham fan has, one thing that you cannot deny is that he didn't become a millionaire by making poor business decisions. Now, I'm going to contradict that immediately, because I'm going to say, despite the fact that he's made a whole load of poor business decisions whilst being in charge of West Ham. So when I saw his comments in this interview, where he's kind of saying that he's going to take a back seat, thank F for that, he's taken a back seat, and now we'll watch West Ham simply as a supporter. Yeah, I laughed at that bit as well. And he'll probably look at selling his shares once West Ham United are back in the Premier League. Now, when I read that, my first thought wasn't shock. It wasn't sort of like surprise that he's not going to sell his shares. It was more about, well, of course that's what he's going to do. Because in fact, had David Sullivan had announced that he was selling his shares anytime soon, I'd have been more surprised at that than I was about him saying that he's hanging on to his shares. Because from a business perspective, selling now makes very, very little sense. Now, look, I know there's a few of you in the chat, but I don't know how many of you are subscribers. But if you're new to this channel, that QR code there takes you to the subscription page. Why not click on the subscription box and become a subscriber of the channel? And I'm sure many people in the chat will tell you it's worth doing. Free of charge, by the way. You don't have to pay to become a subscriber. So let's look at where we're at this moment in time. We're a championship football club. Painful as it is to say, that's the reality. And relegation means a lot of changes, especially financially. So the Premier League, is gone. Television money disappears with it. Commercial income is more difficult. The profile of this football club has dropped. And inevitably, so does the value of the football club itself. And one could argue that before relegation, West Ham were widely valued at somewhere between 750, 800 million, just a bit more than 800 million, give or take. But today's estimate puts that figure at somewhere around 450. That's a conservative guess. Now let's bring Mr. Sullivan into the equation. He still owns 38.8% of West Ham United. I know, shock horror, he hasn't let go of his shares. He's resigned from the board, but he still owns 38.8%. Now, look, if the club is worth £450 million today, then his sharehold is worth somewhere in the region of about £175 million. Now, Don't misunderstand me. 175 million to all of us is an extraordinary amount of money. For most of us, it's a figure that we can't even begin to imagine. But put yourself in his shoes, even if you wanted to, just for a second. Because if you genuinely believe West Ham have a very good chance of winning promotion this season, and I know we've got to buy players in order to strengthen the squad. I'll come to that later on. It's not all going to be about Sullivan, but the majority of this show will be. So if you believe that we're going to stand a good chance of winning promotion this season, would you sell your shares now? Because if Nuno gets this team back into the Premier League at first time of asking, the value of this football club is going to increase overnight. You're no longer talking about championship money. You're talking once again about an established London Premier League football team. The TV revenues will start coming in, stronger sponsorship opportunities, and significantly greater commercial appeal. Suddenly, the valuation moves back to 750, 800 million pounds. Now you do the math. 38.8% of 800 million is worth 310 million pounds. You think about that. At the moment, Sullivan's shares are worth about 175 million. If we go up, his shares increase back up to about 310 million pounds. You think about that. Without him doing anything at the club, just sitting there, being a supporter, watching it from the sidelines. I hope he don't turn up at the fucking stadium, I'll tell you that. But without lifting a finger, without doing anything whatsoever, the value of David Sullivan's sharehold could increase by around 135 million pounds if we win promotion at first time of asking. Now, there's a downside to that, because if we stay in the Championship another season, if we don't go up, then that valuation could start going down as well. You know, what goes up goes down and all that sort of bollocks as well. So that's why I'm surprised that some supporters are surprised. Because if someone came to you today and offered you 175 million pound for an asset, but you genuinely believe that that asset could reasonably be worth over 300 million pounds in 12 months' time, would you sell? Honestly, I know what my answer would be. I wish I was in that position. I suspect I know what your answer would be as well. Let's be realistic here. We as fans are loyal. This isn't about loyalty. It's not even about football. It isn't about whether David Sullivan loves West Ham United or not. It's about business. It's about investment. And a businessman doesn't usually sell valuable assets when they're sitting at one of their lowest valuations. They wait. Now, I completely understand why West Ham fans want Sullivan to leave altogether. Let's be honest, 15 years of frustration. I understand the division that that man has caused, him and Brady. I understand why many supporters have only renewed their season tickets after he stepped away from the board. Now, this is the thing. I think a lot of fans thought he's gone. I remember seeing all the videos and the statements, social media. He's gone. He's gone. Well, he hasn't gone. He never did leave. All he did was step away from the board. He did nothing more than that. And I'm aware that there are likely to be many fans feeling a sense of possible betrayal, a feeling of being hoodwinked. Over 50,000 fans have bought season tickets on the belief that Sullivan was gone. And now, or no, let me rephrase. The vast majority of those 50,000 fans have bought season tickets on the belief that Sullivan was gone. And now that those ticket sales have gone so well, and we are now hearing that Sullivan, in fact, is still around. So West Ham fans' feelings are probably completely valid. But wanting something to happen and expecting it to happen are two very, very different things. When Sullivan resigned as a director, I think some supporters convinced themselves that that meant he would immediately disappear from West Ham altogether. That's not been the case. They've treated his resignation as though it was the first step towards a quick exit. I'm going to be honest, I've talked about this before. I did a video about this before, several, and I've kind of said, and it's not me being some sort of like, brain, someone who's got a big brain or anything. I just never saw it that way. I've always seen that Sullivan has stepped aside, but he's always around. I put my neck on the line the other week and I did a show suggesting that there's still people on the board that are representing his interests. Because when you've got a 39% stake in this club or any business, you're going to want representation on the board. Because look, resigning from the board and selling your shares and completely leaving the club are very, very different things. One means you've stopped running the football club, and thank God for that. Look at the way, I know we haven't bought anyone yet, but look at the way we've done our transfer business so far, the way we've sold Matthias Fernandes, the way we've sold Crescencio Somerville, and other players that are potentially going to leave. And I'm going to talk about them later on. Because had it been Sullivan at the helm, we know that Matthias Fernandes would have been sold for 50, 55 million. We know that Somerville would have gone to Roma for the 38, 39 million pounds they offered. There's no way on earth we would have got nearly 150 million pounds for those two players alone if Sullivan was still running the club. So that's a bonus. Sullivan is not running the football club at this moment in time. Now, the other means that you give away ownership of an incredible, valuable financial asset. So resigning from the board and selling your shares are two, and I'm sure you know this. I'm probably preaching to the converted already, but I'm sure you know this. But the resigning from the board and selling your shares are very, very different. Like I said, one is about stopping to run the football club. That's resigning from the board. Selling your shares means that you've gone, but he hasn't gone. And those are two worlds apart, those things. Now, let's also remember what actually changed over the last few months. Brady's gone. She's definitely not coming back. David Sullivan has resigned from the board. Daniel Kretinsky is increasing his sharehold from 27 to 43% by purchasing some of the Gold family shares. And I know people are asking, well, what's gone on with that? The realistic truth is that takes time. That's in progress. That's happening. That will happen. And once that process receives formal approval, Kretinsky will become the largest individual shareholder at the club. And on top of that, Kretinsky and Vanessa Gold and the other board members have already confirmed that they'll be voting together on board matters, effectively giving them control over the strategic direction of this football club. So whether David Sullivan owns 38.8% of shares or not, the balance of power has shifted, and that is a crucially important thing. Ownership and control aren't always the same thing. He owns the club, or he part owns the club, but he doesn't have control of it at this moment in time. Now, supporters often use those words interchangeably because they kind of like they feel identical. You can own a significant shareholding in a company without controlling its day-to-day operation, and that's increasingly where Sullivan appears to be. He has publicly said that he's now taken a back seat. The football club is being restructured. Kretinsky is becoming the dominant figure. The executive responsibilities have changed. And from Sullivan's point of view, he can simply sit there, allow someone else to steer this football club and watch the value of his investment go up and up. So why would he rush to sell? Now, there's one situation where everything could change. And it's important to be clear here. There have been serious allegations made against Sullivan, which has received significant media attention. And at the time of recording, they still remain allegations. There have been no charges. There has been no criminal conviction and no legal finding that would automatically prevent him from owning shares in a football club. At this moment in time, people, whether you like it or not, it's not me protecting him. I'm just stating fact. At this moment in time, in the eye of the law, he's done nothing wrong. And that's really important because at some point in the future, if he were to be charged and if he were to be found guilty of any offences, then that does affect his suitability under footballing regulatory framework. And then things could change very, very differently. The independent footballing regulator, the new independent footballing regulator, has been created with powers relating to owners' suitability. And in certain circumstances, those powers could potentially result in pressurizing or requiring an owner to dispose of their interest in a football club. So if that happened, if Sullivan was charged and if he was found guilty, then the IFR could turn around and say, based on these findings, based on those charges, based on these convictions, we want you to get rid of your shares. And only then might he turn around and decide to sell, sooner rather than later. Now, I don't know how long these investigations will go on for. Sometimes you hear of these investigations could go on for years. Who knows? But until something materially changes, Sullivan remains perfectly entitled to retain his shares. Supporters can't vote him out. Social media campaigns can't force him out. No amount of chanting in the London Stadium can force him out. Legally, those shares belong to him. And unless he chooses to sell them or circumstances fundamentally change, they remain his. That's simply how company ownerships work. Now, I've got to give, before anyone says anything, I've got to give credit to Hammers United for their No More BS campaign, which has had a massive impact on Brady leaving and for Sullivan deciding to step away from the board. But alas, it has not made Sullivan decide to sell up. Not yet. It hasn't gone that far. So perhaps we need to reset our expectations. Could Sullivan return to the the West Ham board when we return to the Premier League? And once all these, let's say these allegations all die down, let's hope they don't. But if they do, could he return to the board? Well, yeah, he probably could. There's a distinct possibility that that's very, very likely if these allegations are unfounded. I hope that doesn't go that way, but it's a thought that we've got to seriously consider. Now, look, owners invest to increase value, and if West Ham get promoted this season, David Sullivan's shareholding could become dramatically more valuable. Like I said, without him having to do anything at all. That's my opinion. I want to hear yours as well. The other thing I've got to note is, of course, there's been talk about Sullivan selling his shares. Now, of course, if an investor was interested in buying shares, it'd be now when they're worth, Sullivan shares are worth 175 million. The last thing an investor would want is West Ham to be promoted and then an investor going to buy Sullivan shares there when they go over 300 million. Now, there's all this talk about the Reuben brothers, which is a story that came up over the last couple of days. Now, look, before anyone gets excited, I want to make something quite clear. At this moment in time, I've seen nothing that convinces me that there's any real substance behind these reports about the Reuben brothers being interested in buying Sullivan shares. As things stand, I don't believe there's any evidence to suggest that at all. But that doesn't mean that there can't become an interest in further down the line. But if you're a Reuben brother, like I've just said, you'd want to buy the shares now. Sullivan has come out and said, I'm not selling. So there goes that. But in a year's time, if we go back up and the shares are worth 300 million, 310 million, yeah, Sullivan will probably be looking to sell. And would the Reuben brothers still be interested? Look, we know about their background. They invest heavily in property and regeneration projects across London. They've done that for many years, and they've had previous business interests around Stratford. And anyone who understands their business model will know they don't buy football clubs for the sake of owning a football club. They're looking at a wider opportunity. They're looking for land. They're looking for land to sort of, develop and so on. And the London Stadium, that area, if one day the stadium and the land it's on is available to sell, of course they're going to be interested. Who wouldn't be? With people of that sort of money, they'd be mad not to be. So I can understand why the Reuben brothers have been linked. But are they going to be looking to buy Sullivan shares now? No. Might they be interested if we get promoted at this time next season and the shares go up? Possibly, because they might be looking at the bigger picture and thinking, well, yeah, all right, the shares are now 300 million, but the value of that land and what the stadium sits on is far, far greater. Right. I'm going to take a breather because I can see an awful lot of comments. I'm going to get onto other comments as well and other stories very briefly. But let's see what you guys have got to say. Now, before I do that, I'm going to start a poll. How do you feel? Do you feel surprised about Sullivan's recent statement that he's not selling? Do you feel conned? Do you feel not surprised? Or do you not care? He's not part of the day-to-day business decisions. So he's got no influence, so it matters not. So there you go. You can do a poll. So let's see what we've got in the chat. I've been talking for a good 20 minutes. Evening, Stel. Hope all is well. I do believe Sullivan using this stance as a tactic to try and sell his shares for Premier League money. But at the same time, IFR could force him to sell if found guilty. Absolutely. Good evening to you, Randy. Iron Disciple, grumblings from an endangered species like goblin, flailing to keep from extinction in power and influence, and someone was bound to listen. That's rather poignant. Iron Disciple again. I knew after Stevenage Sullivan, the Hut was going to pipe up. He was bound to. I knew this was coming. Doesn't mean Jack, and I'm not talking about his son. Well, yeah, at this moment in time, it doesn't mean Jack because he's got other things to worry about. But I do wonder. I do ask myself, if these allegations are dropped and he doesn't get charged with anything, what then? What then? But I'm hoping by that time that Kretinsky will have completed the purchase of the additional shares for him to become the dominant shareholder at the club. So it kind of, Sullivan will still have a say, but kind of be less of a worry if Kretinsky was the man in charge. Iron Disciple again, he just wanted to do this in conjunction with open news of good business and now is trying to remain attached when his nonsense is gone in influence. Who else have we got? Randy again. I don't think there will be a case Sullivan comes back, knowing everyone at the club have distanced themselves from him. Plus, I do think Sullivan trying to get most money for his shares. Do you think he's trying to, big it up now? Is that what you're trying to say? That he's trying to big it up now in order to get a bigger price to sell now? Interesting approach. But will anyone buy those shares for £300 million when they're only worth 175 million? I don't know. It's an interesting thought. Randy again. Plus, IFR are still investigating Sullivan to see if he's deemed unfit as an owner, and if found guilty, he won't have a choice but sell his shares for whatever price is agreed. So he'll be gone for good. Absolutely, that's correct. Let's get other people in the chat. Mark, good evening, mate. I hope you're well. Thank you for joining. I'm having a wonderful weekend, and I'm having a beer as well. I know what it looks like. It's IPA. Yeah, all right. Yeah, but I can't drink lager. Goes right through me. Cheers. And I hope you're having a good weekend as well. Good evening, Josh. I wouldn't let Sullivan's reluctance to sell get everyone down. We all knew this was go slowly. At least he's not making the decisions. They said they're voting for Kretinsky. Absolutely spot on. That's exactly what I've said, and I'm glad you agree with that. Darren, good evening, mate. I hope you're well. Thank you for joining. It is impromptu. Who knows? If it goes well, I might do more impromptu Saturday night shows. Because we're gonna have football on. Well, we're gonna have football on Tuesdays and Saturdays. I'll see how the season goes. Richard, good evening, mate. I hope you're well. Sullivan's a horrible little man. We will get him out. Well, yeah, eventually he might go. Daniela, good evening to you. What Sullivan says now may be totally different in 6 months' time. Let's wait and see. He's fighting his corner and not giving anything away now. Kansas Storm, good evening to you, mate. Sullivan is out of the loop now, so any info from him is dubious at best. He's a person best forgotten. We're certainly out of the loop on the operational side. We all agree on that. But unfortunately, he is still a major shareholder in this football club. Josh, it shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. I think you've got several YouTube channels inciting anger and get some clicks, making it sound like Sullivan is not selling yet is news. That's a really good point. Look, yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I was even surprised that anyone was still in touch with Sullivan after everything that's happened. So when Hammers News said that they've been interviewed, I know they haven't. I know how the process works. They sent him a text message. He replied to the text message, and they've made a story out of that. Anthony, good evening, mate. I hope you're well. David, why are we talking about this man? Well, I hope I've explained the first 20 minutes of why I was talking about this particular individual. Randy, Sullivan wants the most money he can get, but as I say, might not have a choice if the IFR concludes his or her investigation. But ultimately, I think we will see the back of him one day, one way or another. Yeah, but like I said, the IFR have got to have something to go on. And unfortunately, at this moment in time, the only thing the IFR can't recommend for someone to sell their shares in a club just because they run the club badly. We've got to remember this. There's an awful lot of football clubs, even very wealthy ones. Look at Chelsea as a prime example. There's an awful lot of football clubs that are run not very well, or they break the rules and stuff like that. But the difference is it's about individuals. It's about individuals. If the IFR finds something in this individual that they say doesn't justify them being, validate them being an owner of a football club. That changes. Now, at this moment in time, running a football club badly, the IFR can't turn around and say, "Oh, you've run this club badly, off you drop. You've got to sell your shares." They've got to find something really valid. And the accusations against him are those points. If those accusations, if those allegations go to being charged, if he's then charged and then he's found guilty and convicted, then the IFR have got something to turn around and say he's not a fit and proper person to run a football club. I don't know any other reason that they could pin their hopes on, or not their hopes, but they can turn around and say he's not fit and proper to run a club, apart from the allegations that have been made. Please tell me if you think I'm wrong, by the way, and give me other reasons why you think he's unfit. Iron Disciple, the club needs to at least ban him given the gravity of his charges. That's fair. Yeah, they could ask him to stay away from the stadium. That's fair point. Yeah. Aaron, good evening to you, mate. I'm late the one time you're actually on time. Good evening to you, mate. I don't think you've missed much. I did a 20-minute ramble and you came on oh yeah, you missed almost the whole ramble. God, mate, I'm not going to go over it again. I hope you're well, Aaron. Good to see you. Good evening, PA and Jack. Evening all. Why would he sell? Why the share value is down? Exactly that. Josh, he's practically on his way out. How does he recover from this, really? I just want Kretinsky to buy up gold shares. I know it's an exchange of millions, but when will it happen? The process is happening. You've got to be patient there. And I know I did sort of say, and I remember it saying it quite distinctly, the one thing that the West Ham fans need to be is patient. You know, think these things, the buying and selling of shares don't happen like that. Don't happen overnight. You know, there's a process in place and it's a legal process and it takes time. But my understanding is that it's happening. We've just got to be patient that it's happening. WTBSTGW, good evening to you. I like cats, but I do like Leeds. All the cats are out tonight. All three of them, they're out. So no cat will make an appearance tonight. I hope you're well. Thank you for joining. Mark, if we get stuck in the championship, God forbid, will we ever get rid of him? That's a really good question. I don't know. Well, maybe. He's getting old. He's old. You know, maybe he might decide to just call it in. And who knows? Darren, I wasn't shocked. He weren't going to sell his shares. He wants Premier League money. Thank you for subscribing, mate. Much appreciated. You're welcome to the West Ham Voice. Daniela, press that. Thank you very much, Daniela. Danny boy, good evening, mate. I hope you're well. Thank you for joining. Josh, the thing that pissing me off is I'm seeing people call the fans that bought a season ticket mugs. Absolutely not. I renewed on the first day of renewal, and that was well before Sullivan even talked about leaving, etc. I said, I'm going back. I support West Ham United. You don't support the regime, you support the team, as the saying goes. The thing that's pissing me off is people saying that those who have bought season ticket are mugs. As if Sullivan pulled some masterstroke to convince fans to buy tickets. Weird thinking. Look, mate, yeah, I agree with you. Look, maybe there are going to be people that bought season tickets because of the announcement that Sullivan made that he was moving away from the board. There probably are. They're not mugs. You know, they want well for the club. They want to come and re-support the team. I'm not saying you're calling them mugs, by the way, mate, Josh. You know, but those who do, yeah, these fans want to support the team. There's a lot of fans that said, I'll only come back to West Ham United once Sullivan and Brady have gone. And Sullivan and Brady, from the operational perspective, have gone. Iron Disciple, let him not do it. He's not doing anything in the business directly, and the club needs to ban him, given the panorama and the fact that it isn't entirely resolved for Sullivan. I think that's a good call. That's a good call. WTB, exciting time. Sullivan in the background is something we tolerate short-term future planning. Yeah, fair. Good evening to you, user. How are you, mate? User GP. Aaron again. 175 million is an awful lot of money. Take me all year to earn that. Take you all year. Take me my lifetime or several lifetimes to earn that. Daniela, Stel, or anyone catch the stadium debate on YouTube Friday, May? Yeah, I've seen snippets of that, and I am going to do a show about that. And I know other channels have talked about that already, about the stadium. Look, there's some interesting things in there. I'm not prepared to talk about it today. I haven't written any notes, but there's some very, very interesting things to I'll do another show about that. I promise I will. But I've got to rewatch that video. I've only watched snippets of it. Randy, another reason why Sullivan won't come back is if he tries to come back, we saw that it would affect sponsors and brand deals. Very, very good point. If he comes back, plus all the remaining shareholders don't want him to return. Yeah, they've made a pact. They've agreed. They've made it, and they've announced it. Kretinsky and Gold have announced it, that everyone is siding with them. All the other shareholders, Kretinsky, Gold, Trip Smith, and all the other minor shareholders, whatever vote is happening about the operational side of this football club, they're all going the same way, regardless of what Sullivan wants. Yeah, Iron Disciple. Is it a lot? It is a lot, and of course he wasn't selling, but his welcome amongst the fan base is also aligned with Daniel Kretinsky. It's a split ship sailing, but it is what it is. I didn't get the context, but I've read it out, so it's too late. Sullivan loves Cardiff. We know that, Iron Disciple. He's not a West Ham fan. I don't think he ever has been. Mark, maybe Sullivan can take over Cardiff and sell us Dylan Lawler on the cheap. Kalispera to you, Keith. I hope you're well, mate. I hope all is well with you. I hope you're having a good summer. Randy, GP, I do believe that Sullivan won't be, regardless whether he wants Premier League money for his shares or IFR is still investigating into his conduct. I do believe he will be gone regardless. Look, I think he'll eventually go. He'll eventually go. But it clearly is, from this interview that's happened, it'll clearly be on his terms and nobody else's until the IFR have got something to charge him with. I'm going to scroll down. I'm going to get a few more people involved in the chat if I can. Renegade, good evening to you. Whatever Sullivan might be, a bad businessman isn't one of them. He'll sell at the best price. It's naive to think otherwise. I totally agree. Aaron, he may be innocent, but he'll always be a little C. GP, careful still. You have your West Ham Gallagher brothers saying you're Sully's best mate. I really am not. I really am not. I've put it in context. I've said what I've said right at the start of the show. Anyone wants to go and just double check why I'm doing this show, you can go back to the beginning of the show. I've stated it very clearly. This isn't a pro Sullivan video. It's not about sort of like his rights or anything. I'm just stating the mere facts. Business. It's more business than anything else. Toha, good evening, mate. Thank you for joining. Randy, GP have the same mindset, but I don't think regardless, I do think regardless, I can't see a world where Sullivan comes back plus a point of no return. So I think even if IFR is still investigating, I do believe he'll sell. I think it's whichever's going to be the quickest, the soonest. Either we go back to the Premier League and he goes 300 mil, I'll have that, thank you very much, or he gets charged and he gets found guilty, etc. And the IFR have got something to throw at him, and then he'll be forced to sell. So whichever of the two comes first, either we go back to the Premier League and he'll go, I'll take the 300 million, or if IFR go, well, you've been charged, you've been found guilty of misconduct and blah, blah, blah. So we're forcing you to sell. Whichever way, one of those two things will make him leave. West Ham, good evening, mate. How are you? Renegade, are you sure DS is a good businessman? Have you seen how we've been run? Yeah, and I qualified that right at the start. The irony is this. He's made money. He's a multimillionaire. You're not a shit businessman if you've made multi-million pounds. But that doesn't mean you can run all businesses successfully. The porn industry and everything else he was involved in, the newspaper industry and all that sort of stuff, he made his millions. He did well. He made his millions. He ran them in the effective way to make money, but it didn't qualify him for running a good football club. We know he can't run a football club well. So overall, he's been successful in the porn industry. He's been successful in the newspaper industry. He's not been that great in the footballing industry because he's relegated 2 clubs and us more than once. Toha, did you see GP in the chat? Did I see GP in the chat? Evening to you. Saying evening to everyone. Aaron, he's not a good businessman. It isn't hard to sell sex. Thank you. Adam, good evening, mate. I hope you're well. Listening whilst watering the garden. We got a hose pipe. Haven't you got a hose pipe ban out there? Mate, giving yourself away. Steve, Kalispera to you, mate. I hope you're well. He's a dead man walking, just a matter of time. I'm laughing because I was just thinking, every time I see a photo of him, I think he's about to. Anyway, Randy, GP, neither would I. Whether he goes to prison or sells up, I do believe one way or another, we won't ever have to speak about him again. I hope not. I haven't upset you by doing this show all about him. Didn't really want to. Kansas, seriously, 170 million or 300 million? What on earth does it matter at 7 years of age? You can't take it with you. That's a very good point, mate. That's a very good point. But of course, what he'll do, he'll hand it over to his sons, his family, and all that sort of stuff. So the more he can give to them, look, you know, if we go up and he's worth 300 million and he sells his shares rather than handing them over to his sons, I'd rather that. Good evening, Chodge. How are you, mate? I hope you're well. Renegade. You don't accumulate £1 billion by being an idiot. I said a good businessman, not one with morals or scruples. There you are. Who else have we got? Aaron. They have shared in Newcastle, so they have to sell those shares before buying into West Ham. Who? I must have missed something there, Aaron. I don't know who you're referring to. Mark, can you teach Budgie how to do a poll still? He gets confused. I'll speak to him offline because we've now got on the platform. I think he uses the same platform I do. In the platform, it's there. It's in widgets. There's a little area called widgets, and it's in there. Very easy to do. I'll have a word with him. Josh. Not surprised. Do not care whilst he isn't making decisions. I don't like how it's being used to create news on YouTube by being prone to negativity. I've never felt more positive, and I hope I'm really not trying to bring the mood down. Please, I hope that's not what you're thinking here. You know, it's not me about trying to jump on this bandwagon to talk about, you know, doom and gloom. It's just to be real. I'm just trying to offer a realistic, I guess, perspective on this. GP, be interesting if it gets sent down, how TalkSport will respond. They've been a big Sully fan. They have indeed. Trudge, look at the emails as evidence in the Epstein files. How many have been arrested? Well, how many in America have been? Hardly any, unfortunately. Yuha, good evening to you from Finland. I hope you're well, mates. Thank you for joining. Good evening to you, Hammerite. How are you? I thought, although it's taking time, Kretinsky will buy enough of Vanessa Gold shares to be the biggest shareholder, put his money into the club and drop the value of Sullivan shares. Am I wrong? Yes, but let me explain this because I had to explain it earlier on when I was responding to a comment on Facebook earlier in the evening. So this is how it works. Kretinsky is buying Vanessa Gold shares. He's buying 16% of their shares in order to increase his sharehold to 43%. That money goes directly to the Gold family. It doesn't go into the club. It goes to the Gold family. They own those shares. So that money goes to the Gold family. That doesn't do anything to the sharehold of the rest of the shareholders of the football club. The difference is we keep hearing that Kretinsky is going to invest money into West Ham. There's been talk about 90, 100 million pounds. We don't know. Clearly something has happened because our debt has, not all our debt has gone, but a lot of our debt has gone. The 40 million pounds that we owed to Barclays has been paid off, and we don't seem to have been falling foul of PSR. PSR ended at the end of June. So clearly something's happened. Now, let's take, for example, if Kretinsky has put money into West Ham United. Let's say, for argument's sake, he's given West Ham United 100 million pounds. Now, he could put that money in as a claim to sharehold, or he could say, this is a loan that I will want paying back at some point. Now, I've got to get this right. I've got to be really careful and get this right. If it's a loan and over time West Ham don't pay that loan back, or it takes time, now Kretinsky can turn around and say, okay, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll convert that loan into shares. Now, if no other shareholder invests any money, then that means Kretinsky will convert the 100 million pounds into shares, and that will reduce the number of shares other shareholders have in the club. Does that make sense? So at this moment in time, the money that he's spending on Vanessa Gold shares goes to the Gold family, doesn't go into West Ham. It doesn't impact the valuation of Sullivan shares. However, if Kretinsky is investing money in the football club and then he wants some return from that, he can ask the club to agree to converting that loan, that money, into a sharehold. That means he increases his sharehold and it diminishes everybody else's sharehold if no other shareholder invests any money in the club. I hope that makes sense, but do tell me further down the line if it doesn't. Randy, GP, once the investigation is complete, if found guilty of the charges and being unfit as an owner, more outlets that will pile on him. Plus, it will probably be the last of him being involved in football. It'll be the last of him being involved in anything. James, good evening, mate. I hope you're well. Thank you for joining, mate. I think he will only sell if we make it up. If we go up, even though there's no way he can come back, which is great. Daniel's got control now, and you can see the positivity at the club already. I totally agree, James, and good to see you, mate. Ray, good evening, mate. How are you? Thank you for joining as well. Who else have we got in the chat? Randy again. Stell, do you think the stance of West Ham saying Diouf is not for sale is saying that they don't want to sell him, or do you think they're holding out for 30 million before letting him go, or is he a key player? All of those. Why don't we talk about that? Because that takes us on to other points, doesn't it? Malik Diouf. I did a show this morning to talk about Diouf. And because I read last night, I actually recorded it late last night, but I only released it out this morning, saying that Brentford had approached West Ham United with an opening bid for the player. Now, I had no idea how much the opening bid was. I still don't think any of us know. But Kretinsky today has apparently said he's not for sale. And I think that's a good thing. Now, that can be construed in a number of different ways. All of the things that you've just said. It could be that he definitely isn't for sale. That Kretinsky has made it abundantly clear that he wants to keep the core of this team. He wants to keep the vast majority of this team. We always knew Matthias Fernandes was going to leave. We always knew that Somerville was going to leave. We kind of know that quite a number of players that are not key players will be going. So Todibo will go, Fulkrug will go, Aaron Wan-Bissaka is looking like he's going to go, and a few others. We know this. But when it comes to key players, yes, I do see Diouf being a key player. And the idea is, you've seen how we've done our business. The idea is, if a key player is being sought after by another football club, Kretinsky's going to go, no problem at all. You want Matthias Fernandes, 85 mil. You want Crescencio Somerville, minimum 55 mil. You want Malik Diouf, sure, minimum. I actually think more than that, because it's interesting. When I did the show this morning and said, I made it up. I said, I don't know how much, but I think maybe it's going to be no less than 30 million pounds. And that makes sense. No less than 30 million pounds. Why? We bought him for 19 million pounds. 20 years of age at the time, I think he was 21, just turning 21 years of age. He's got years ahead of him. He's had a year's experience in the Premier League. He could become a big player, whichever club he ends up at, even if he ends up at West Ham. I think he had a rough season last season. I said that in this morning's show. He made 34 appearances in all competitions. Of those, 31 were starts, which shows that he's our number one left back. And I know the jury's out on him, and jury's out on him for me as well. I think we've seen glimpses of what he can do. I'm not necessarily sure that we've seen the best of him just yet. And what I suggested this morning is, I think that he could, a year in the Championship, could actually do him the world. It could toughen him up and could actually turn him into the player that we thought we were going to buy. Now, everyone says he's great at going forward. He's not so great at defending. A suggestion's been made that I didn't think of this morning. Somerville's gone. This player could become, Malik Diouf could become a left winger. You think about that with, say, Ollie Scholes or even Ezra Myers as a left back, and then Malik Diouf further forward as being a left winger. That could work. He's got a wand of a left foot. We just haven't seen enough of it. So yes, I actually think he is a key player. So therefore, holding out for as much money as we can get makes perfect sense. So if a club comes in, Brentford or whoever else it is, and apparently there's a lot of interest, if a club comes in and says, we'll give you 35 million pounds, or we'll give you 30 million with a sell-on clause, or I wouldn't go with 30 million and add-ons. Forget all that. We bought him for 19 million. We want to make at minimum 10 million pounds profit on him. So that means 29, 30 million pounds. I would say give us 30 million with a 10%, 15% sell on clause, and he's yours. Or I would say you give us 35 million or near enough 40 million, and he's yours. But so it's all of those things, Randy. I think the club are saying he's not for sale, but we know every player's got a value, got a price. And if a club comes in and says, "Here's 30 million plus a sell-on clause, here's 35 million," we might just turn around and go, "Yeah, okay, we'll take that." What else have we got here? Simon, good evening to you. Do you really think that toe rag was just going to give up his shares on West Ham? No, know what we have. Had Dickett's in charge since the 70s. I know I was there. I've been there too, mate. I'm older than than you think, and I know exactly what you're saying, Simon. And I agree with you. Absolutely not. I didn't think he was going to give up his shares, and I did. I'd said that when he resigned his post, when everyone was cock a hoop saying he's gone, and I kept saying, well, only gone from the front line, not in the. He's still there. Trapper John, good evening, mate. I hope you're well. Unless some of these youngsters turn out to be outstanding, we still have the same squad minus 2 very good players from last season. Well, that takes me on to a couple of the youngsters as well that I wanted to talk about. It's going to take me on to a veteran as well. But you give me, for example, we saw Lewis Orf. I was there on Wednesday evening, and I saw how good Lewis Orford was. Very, very good. Okay, you put it in context. It was against a League One side that was in the playoffs, didn't quite make it into the Championship, but they were in the playoffs. But we saw what Lewis Orford did in the centre of midfield. I think he was outstanding. And I hats off to him, because I did say only a week and a half ago, that I wasn't sure that many of these West Ham Academy players were going to break through into this senior squad. But Lewis Orford impressed me. Another player that also impressed me was the defender, Aredas Golombekis. Very impressive. I hate that photo. Why did that photo? Sorry about the photo. Aredas Golombekis was very impressive, and he was the only player to have played both halves. He was taken off with a slight injury, which is nothing too serious, on the 80th minute. But it gave me a bit of hope, because I suggested that the academy players that I think are going to stay in the squad next season are no new players. They're going to be Myers, they're going to be Scarles, they're going to be Freddie Potts, Mohamedou Kante, and La Madrid. And the only additional player I suggested last week was the goalkeeper, Finley Herrick. So that would be 6 academy players that are likely to be in the squad this coming season. I didn't think there'd be any other players breaking through, but players like Aredas Golombekis, players like Lewis Orford, 1 or 2 others kind of shone. That made me think, do you know what? They're pretty decent. Do I think they will be regulars in the squad, in the lineup? No, I don't. Will they be part of the squad? Look, the beauty of having academy players is they don't have to be officially part of the official squad. You can have your 24, 25 players, whatever number it is in the Championship, but you can still call upon the under 21 academy players if and when you need to have them. And that's the beauty. If they're under 21, then you can call upon them. So the likes of Orford, the likes of Golombekis, are likely to see perhaps a little bit of game time. If we go for progress in the cup, I expect, actually, when we play Portsmouth, I'm not expecting to be a full senior squad. Full senior starting 11 in a game against Portsmouth. That's not throwing the cup against Portsmouth away, but I foresee a couple of these youngsters being given a chance. They may only be given 10, 15 minutes or so, but I can see that happening. So going back to your point, mate, where's it gone? It's disappeared. Oh, damn it. It's gone. But you said about, there it is, John. Unless some of these youngsters turn out to be outstanding, we'll still have the same crap squad, minus 2 very good players from last season. We do. But I also believe that we will be signing players. I think over the next week or so, we'll start seeing players coming through. I truly, truly believe that. Randy, Stella, are you hopeful that the sale of Fernandes and Somerville getting upwards of 140 million, that Koppen, Nuno and Kretinsky will be able to get the positions we need in the transfer window? Absolutely. And let me explain that as well. Out of the 140, 150 million excuse me, that we made of these two players, the profit of those is only around about, give or take, 37 plus another 30. Um, Profit is about 65 million, 65 to 70 million. Now, when I made a comment earlier today and I said, with that money, we can then go and buy maybe 3 or 4 players. Someone said, rightly so. What? You're buying 3 or 4 players for 65 million? Well, it doesn't work that way. The money we've made from these players goes into our accounts as we've sold that player for. So that's money banked, so to speak. Even though we're not going to get the money all in one, that's money we can sort of dip into, so to speak. Now, you buy 3 or 4 players. You might buy a player for 20 million, a player for 15 million, etc., etc. You've only got to put a deposit down. Right, that player's 25 million, and the club wants 15 million up front. That player's 15 million, the club want 5 million up front, and so on. So you can use the 60 odd million pound profit to go and buy yourself 3 or 4 players from that money. So yes, I do believe that Koppen, Nuno, Kretinsky will be able to get the positions that we need in the transfer window. I do believe that. Bazza. Sullivan doesn't go until his shares are worth more. He's here for at least another season. Absolutely correct, Bazza. Thank you for joining. John, good evening to you. If Sullivan did try to come back to the London Stadium to watch a match, he would need the SAS to protect him. He would be stupid, wouldn't he? He would actually be stupid to do that. West Ham United fan, good evening to you. IFR won't force him, mainly because it implicates the FA. I don't know, really. I think if he gets convicted, then the IFR have got a good leg to stand on to say, because of this, the IFR have, newly formed. It's got to show that it's got teeth. This is one of its biggest initial challenges. They're not likely to get a bigger challenge than this one, to sort of make a decision whether, if Sullivan gets convicted of any charges, it won't, this is where they've got to show their worth, the IFR, and this is what they've got to demonstrate that they're a resource that is actually going to make a change in football. Otherwise, why create them? Daniela, absolutely. Rest in peace, Kevin Keegan. The same cancer was lost to Bobby Moore. Absolutely. Good point there. Thank you for that, Daniela. Bazza, he will not be forced to sell. He'll transfer the shares to his lads. That's also a possibility. Absolutely. Yeah. He as an individual may no longer be involved, but yeah, you're absolutely right. He can do that. He can do exactly that. Mark, good thing he's got banned from the women's team. They've just bought 9 players. Good evening, Gart. How are you? Obviously, he was never going to sell unless he thinks he's getting more than the shares he could possibly be worth more, which definitely means a Premier League return. West Ham United fan, we won a Europa Conference. Do you know what? The irony is the money involved in that was negligible. That's the sad truth about it. Didn't make a lot of money out of that. PA and Jack, Sullivan and Gold buying West Ham at 50 million is now worth 170 to 300 million. I wouldn't say that's being a bad businessman. Trodge, I agree with you. If we sell Juve, we can get King Arthur back. Yeah, he was brilliant. I don't know why we ever let him go, Trodge. I was one of his advocates for stay. The man should have. He would have been a legend, because I just can't ever remember him ever giving the ball away. Hammer time. Evening, Stel from southern Finland. Good evening to you. 2 Finnish lads. Juha is in from Finland, and yourself, Hammer time. Good evening to you. Let's try to be positive. That horrible turd can do Jack. I hope sooner Sullivan. I won't say the rest. Good evening, Hammer time. I hope you're well. Renegade. I don't really give a toss about Sullivan. I'm actually quite impressed at the way we are managing to keep our key players. Be nice to see some key purchases too. It's coming. You got to be patient, but it is coming. Mark, this time next week, we're in August. We need to start signing in the coming week. I do agree. Do you know what? We've got the friendly against Rangers tomorrow on Sunday. I think that's going to answer a lot of questions that Nuno may still have about some key players in the squad. I think you're going to see some rapid business start of next week. Osborne. Love the quiet way Daniel does business, unlike Sullivan and the Hammers. And this is the other thing that we've got to get used to, people. We've got to get used to it, because had Sullivan been around, we know what it would be like. We have all the leaks, etc. Now, I've said you can't stop the leaks from journalists. You can't stop the leaks from the ITKs. You can't stop the leaks from agents, player agents, and you can't stop the leaks from other football clubs. So if another football club wants to put an agenda out there, you can't stop that. But one thing that stopped is there are no leaks coming from West Ham, which is wonderful. It makes my job harder when it comes to trying to talk about, because the irony is, like, normally during the transfer window, normally I'd be asking people, I'm saying, so what's going on? And I'll be giving a snippet here and a snippet there. Oh, we're interested in that player, and apparently, so I'd do a show. Now I can't, because I've got no detail, no info. I do not know who we're going for. All I know is that Nuno will not speak to anybody. He keeps his cards close to his chest. If he's dealing with George Mendes is not speaking to any targeting. I disappeared there just for a second. I hope I'm back. The Wi-Fi doesn't look like it's down. So my apologies for that. So what was I saying? I said, look, Nuno doesn't speak to anybody. Mendes doesn't speak to anybody. Niels Koppen is not going to be speaking to anybody. They don't have their favoured journalists. They don't have their favoured ITKs, is my understanding. So trying to get any information at all is going to be very, very difficult indeed. Osborne, Chat still peddling his rubbish. Chat, I don't know who Chat is. Hammer Time, Osborne, spot on. So nice. No more BS. It's being linked, etc. It's good. It makes for a fresher show, because then you're not going to see me 10 times a day going, we're interested in it. I've seen all the rumors about all these links, the 3 Celtic players and all these players from Belgium and all these players from here, there, and everywhere. And I'm just sitting there going, I don't know how much truth there is. So I'm not going to feed viewers, a whole load of bull about this player and then going into detail. Oh, this player is I've done it a couple of times. But I'm not doing it relentlessly. I think it's pointless. Excuse me. Lawrence, that munchkin is a blood-sucking, annoying tick under the skin of the club. Who do you mean? I genuinely don't know who you mean. Lawrence, we do have a host pipe ban. I'm on the cans. Anglian water, about as morally bankrupt as Sullivan. Trodge, sign Nathan Trott, goalkeeper. Reece Burke, experienced championship centre-back. Arthur, left-back. Cullen, experienced centre midfielder. And Ngakia, one of the best right-backs in the championship. Then Garner, exciting left-winger. And maybe a lone prospect, Mbama. I wonder how Nathan Trott is getting on. I liked him. It's a shame that it didn't work out for him. Reece Burke, didn't happen. Arthur, you know my feelings about Arthur. Cullen, I was never convinced on him. And Ngakia, unfortunately, shouldn't have let him go, but he decided he wanted to go. Diangana hasn't pulled up any trees, but ironically, Mbama. Now, I'm sure you've heard about this. I don't know if it's happened yet. This showcase football match that Man City are holding, and apparently they're going to be sort of promoting players that they want to sell or send out on loan. And Mukasa, can't remember, it's Divin Mukasa and Divine. Which one have I got? Which way around is it? They're both Divin and Divine. I think it's Divine Mukasa and Divin Mbama, or Divine, whatever. Mukasa and Mbama, who both West Ham Academy, are now playing for Man City, who are going to apparently be in this showcase game that's going to be held. And apparently West Ham are interested in going. Wouldn't it be a surprise? Mukasa was highly rated as a midfielder. Didn't happen for him at Man City. Mbama, we all know. I'd take Mbama, to be quite honest with you. I actually would take Mbama. I'd forgive him. I'd say, I hope you've learnt your lesson. Knuckle down. Let's score some goals for us. How many goals did he score for Stoke on loan last season? 7 or 8, something like that in the Championship. Josh, unironically, I think he's far better going forward. Juve, several times last season, I thought would work as a replacement for Somerville. It could happen. James, I've got to skip. How far behind am I? Yeah, let's try and catch up. James, do you think all the forgotten players like Ward-Prowse, Fulkrug, Cornet will all be given a chance? No. Maybe. No. James Ward-Prowse. Well, I mean, thank you for setting me up there, James. I've got to be honest with you. James Ward-Prowse, both official games. I know we played a behind closed doors game, friendly, but both friendlies so far, James Ward-Prowse, people, whether you like it or not, has done exceptionally well. Let's put it in context. I know it was against Southend and I know it was against Stevenage. I totally get that. I understand that. But let's also put it in another context. We're not playing Premier League football next season. We'll be playing Championship football. And I think James Ward-Prowse could do a job for West Ham United. I really do. I think he's proving point. I think he ran the show against Stevenage on Wednesday evening in the first half. He did exceptionally well. He took his goal really well. You know, he followed up the rebound off the keeper, etc. And fair play to him, because James Ward-Prowse could do a Todibo on us. He could actually turn around and say, you know what? You don't want me. I'm not part of this team, so I'm not going to play for you. You know, Todibo, apparently Juve want him, but Juve want him on loan. And no doubt Juve will not only want him on loan, but then they'll want us to pay a portion of his fee, of his salary as well. It's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. If Juve wants him, they're going to have to commit to a loan with a commitment to buy. Because West Ham United have had enough of having the piss taken out of them in the transfer market. But let me get back to James Ward-Prowse. I think James Ward-Prowse could probably do a job for West Ham. He won't start. But as a backup, why not? Why not indeed? So yes, James Ward-Prowse. Nicholas Füllkrug, on the other hand, my understanding is, and I don't know how true this rumour is, but Nicholas Füllkrug is apparently training alone at this moment in time. Now, isn't this funny? Because it was only a few days ago that I read this story saying Nicholas Füllkrug has impressed massively in pre-season training. So much so massively that he's not been named once in either squad against Southend or Stevenage. And now we hear, a few days later, wouldn't surprise me it'd be the same social media website that's put this out. Now we hear that Nicholas Füllkrug is training alone. This is the problem when you haven't got any news to report on. You almost start making things up. I've got no idea whether Nicholas Füllkrug impressed in pre-season training, and I've got equally no idea whether he's training alone at this moment in time. And I don't think anybody really does know. Now, what I end up doing, because I've got to put a show out every now and again, is I look through all the bloody videos, don't I, of the training sessions and all the photos, and I'm trying to identify Nicholas Füllkrug. Is he there? Is he there? Is that him? Is that Nicholas? I don't know. And I can't tell you whether I've seen him or not. I certainly haven't seen Aaron Wan-Bissaka. I know he's not back from, and I certainly haven't seen Malik Diouf, is not yet anyway. And I don't know whether I've seen Nicholas Füllkrug training in a picture or a video yet. And I'm going to have to go back and look to find out. But apparently, Füllkrug is training alone. So Ward-Prowse could be a chance. Füllkrug, I think not. Maxwell Cornet, the poor, he can't get a break. He played in the second half against Stevenage on Wednesday evening. He was all right, no great shakes. He was put on the right side rather than on the left side, which is not his natural side. If you know anything about Maxwell Cornet, you know he was a left back, a left wing back, a left winger, and a striker. But he rarely played on the right side of attack. And he was all right. He had one chance. He got hit the post, and I think that came off, and then we scored following on from that. But then he ended up limping. He finished the game limping. And we did the Cornet song again, as we did a few years back when he came back in pre-season training. We thought you were dead. We thought you were dead. Maxwell Cornet, we thought you were. And he took it well. He came over. I think there was a fan who had a Cornet shirt. How did he have a Cornet shirt? Why? And he went over and greeted the fan and all that sort of stuff, but he was limping. I don't know about Cornet. I really don't, because the loan that he's gone, he was on loan to Genoa for 2 seasons. And the only reason why he was on loan to Genoa was because we were paying a vast portion of his 75 grand a week salary. Okay. He's had his salary halved, as most players have. So 75, let's say 40, let's say he's on 39 grand, 38 grand a week, something like that. Now, even that, apparently we were paying, when he went to Genoa, we were paying something like 70% of his wages. So if he goes back out on loan to Genoa again, they're going to go, we want you to pay a portion of his wages. We're going to say on your bike. just like we're going to sell on your bike to Debo. Those days are gone. We're not going to be subsidizing wages for a player to go and ply their trade elsewhere. You want the player, you either buy him or you take him on loan and you take him for the, and you pay his wages. So Cornet, I'm not sure. I don't think it's going to happen. Fulkrug, it's definitely. I'll be look. It won't surprise me. It won't surprise me if we haven't signed a striker that Fulkrug would be on the bench. It won't surprise me. Maybe even Cornet will be on the bench. That will not surprise me. But will they still be here when the transfer window shuts on the 1st of September? No, I don't think so. Hank Barley, good evening to you. Not sure, Stel. I would keep you for sure, but don't see him beating too many one-on-ones. Be like Jimmy in the short term. It's not beating the players. It's the pace he's got, and it's getting that ball into the box. And the irony, if you've got someone like Fulkrug waiting for the cross, we could score a hatful of goals from that. So it's not so much. Look, he's got pace. Is he strong enough? He's going to come up against some bruisers in the Championship, that's for sure. Josh, there was a lot of talk of Man United liking Todibo and Diouf. What's happened there? Just that, Josh. A lot of talk. Man United, do you remember the whole thing about Man United? They were interested a couple of seasons ago when Steiden convinced Todibo to come to West Ham. When Man United couldn't get him at the time because of the rule. What was it? Sir whatever, who owns Man United now, had owned what French club did he come from? Damn it! No, what French club wanted him? There was a French club that wanted him that the Sir whatever had ownership of, and he just bought Man United, so there was a conflict of interest, so Man United can get him. But you're right. But now things have changed there. A new manager at Man United. Perhaps the new manager is not interested in bringing Todibo. Diouf thinks he's good enough for Champions League and Man United and clubs like that. I'm not so sure about that either. Daniela, turning Diouf into a winger is a good call. It worked for Gareth Bale. It did indeed. Josh, going as far back as pre-season last year, about what, mate? Yes, about them having an interest. Absolutely. Let's scroll down. Dad's our job. Good evening to you. Just got back from a 5-year-old's party. That's what you do. Thankfully, my daughter is in her 20s. I don't have to go to children's birthday parties anymore. But mate, you've got to do your duty. I hope you enjoyed yourself. I hope you didn't drink too much pop and eat too much cake. Trudge Juve can only cross. He's got pace, but yes, he can only cross. And sometimes he can't even do that very well. Steve, Alford ran the show in the second half. He absolutely did. He was fantastic. Randy, I'm sure if Juve were to get sold for 30 million plus is what we're holding out for, maybe more, but I'm sure whatever the case, hopefully we will get the players to address the holes in the squad. I do believe that we will get players. We will. The patience is a virtue. Let's talk about another player that looks like he's on his way out. Aaron Wan-Bissaka fell out of grace with Nuno. And everyone's talking about it's because he came back late from the AFCON. It wasn't that. It was just that he just lost his form, and he was getting beaten for, he something happened to Aaron Wan-Bissaka last season that he went from being Hammer of the Year to one of our his positioning on a one-on-one. Aaron Wan-Bissaka is fantastic, but his positioning is all wrong. When I look back on some of the goals that were scored against us last season that came from the right side of attack, from the left side of attack or right side of defence, it would normally be because Aaron Wan-Bissaka was out of position, or he'd be caught upfield and he wouldn't be back in time. Well, again, out of position, I guess. And Kyle Walker-Peters is a better defender. The irony is Aaron Wan-Bissaka is sort of, in a way, better at going forward, a bit like Diouf, but not great at defending. And when you've got Diouf and Wan-Bissaka as your main defenders who just couldn't defend, no wonder we were getting done every single time. Diouf has a lot of good traits, but sadly his defensive ability is letting him down. Absolutely. Who else have we got here? Mark. Le Madrid is on fire. Excuse the pun. He's good. I like him. I like what I'm seeing in Le Madrid as well. A bit of a surprise package, and he's been given a different role. We all thought he was going to play out on the left-hand side, but seems not. He's playing more centrally, and he's doing extremely well. I like him. Baza, League One side He was on loan last season, made a mockery of that move and totally embarrassed the manager. Who are you talking about? You've got to tell me. Dads, because I'm so far behind on the chat. I don't know who you're referring to. Dads, maybe the solution for youth is to keep him and push him up to left wing as Somerville replacement and then look to sign another left back to complete with Skulls. Yeah, we said that earlier in the show. I agree. Phil, it's all getting a bit tedious. We don't all this speculation. We want a good squad capable of doing well in the championship. Don't care about Sullivan. Completely agree. Renegade, Fearon is a baller. I think he's going to have a big role to play in the coming season. I really want to say that I want him to have a big role to play this coming season, but I've got a feeling that possibly he, and if Lewis Orford doesn't break into the squad, he and Orford will get loaned out this season to get a lot of experience. I'm skipping some, so do forgive me. I'm trying to sort of rummage through as many as I can. Comments. I do believe we will still make some sales in the fringe players. No, we will. Definitely. Fulkrug, Cornet. Alvarez, interesting one. I don't know. Todibo, definitely. Wan-Bissaka will go. And then we'll get the right depth and quality needed to replace them. I agree. Alvarez, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with Alvarez. I think if he can buy into Nuno's plans, then I think he'll be a good asset for us. I know he's a bit, the championship is a tough league, and Alvarez, in a way, ironically, we kind of relish that. But will he want to be there? We're being told that he doesn't want to be there. I don't know, but it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Barney, good evening to you, mate. I fear Bristol City may have broken George Earthy. He barely played last season in the first, and in the first loan, he was played as a wing back and closing down, waste of a forward. Get the loans right. George Earthy. I'm not convinced by him, to be honest with you, and I don't think it's Bristol City's fault either. I looked at George Earthy when he played. Apparently, he was ill the other day, so he couldn't play in the game against Stevenage. But I looked at the way he played against Southend, and I just kept wondering to myself, he's so, I hate saying this, but he just looks so lightweight. And I wasn't sure about him, and I'm not sure about him. And then when you talk about other youngsters, when you talk about the likes of Lewis Orford, Le Madrid, Preston Fearon, and other players like that, and then you compare them to Earthy, and I keep thinking Earthy's the one that's meant to be advanced to these other players, but I'm not sure that he is, unfortunately. I want all our academy players to succeed, but I fear that Earthy will not. It won't surprise me if we sell Earthy before the transfer window is done. Stephen, good evening to you, mate. New to this channel, just subscribe. Thank you very much. Welcome to the West Ham Voice, mate, and I hope you're enjoying it. Watch the show for a while on YouTube. Very good. I really appreciate that, Stephen, and thank you for subscribing, mate. Much appreciated. Afternoon to you, English Yardie. I hope you're well, mate. Thank you for joining. Steve scored a wonderful goal against Chelsea. Who? Masuaku did. Yeah, he did, didn't he? And I know Dad said he's a brilliant player. Doesn't understand why we got rid of him. Masuaku doesn't deserve a doorstep left. There you go. Don't you dare diss Masuaku, one of the best left backs we've ever had. Right. 8 Barley. James Ward-Prowse could be a star in the championship as long as it doesn't call him bald. Do you believe? I don't know. Would a manager really get that pissed off at being called baldy? I don't know. I don't know. It's weird. Bazza, so you keep Ward-Prowse over any of the youngsters coming through? In all honesty, mate, they've got to be better than Ward-Prowse. That's the simple fact. That's the truth. And I'm looking at. I like our youngsters, but I think sometimes we big them up too much, and we go, yeah, they're the next best thing. They're going to be great. They're going to be great. You look at the proof is in what's happened to a lot of the youngsters that have left. And I did a show about this a week or two ago where I talked about Mumbama, Sonny Perkins, and various other players that didn't stay at West Ham. They got lured into going to other clubs, etc. How many of them have made? Look. In fair play to them, a lot of them have made. They've made a career out of playing football, but in Championship, in League One, hardly any of them have made a career out of playing Premier League football. And they've got to be better than Ward-Prowse. The reason why I would keep Ward-Prowse, it may well be to the detriment of an academy player. I admit that, But the reason why I would keep him is because of his experience. You're going to need experience in the Championship. You can't fill the squad up with academy players and go, there we go, we're going to win the league. We're not. We're not. We're going to need a good smattering, a mix of younger players, whether they come through the academy or whether they're bought from other clubs, as well as a mix of experienced players. James Ward-Prowse has got that experience. Alvarez has got that experience. Those are the sorts of players that you're going to, in a way, will be able to help these youngsters sort of develop and improve. So, yeah, unfortunately, will James Ward-Prowse start regularly? No, I don't think he will. But then that's all down to who else we go out and buy during this transfer window. Randy, James Ward-Prowse could still go or become an option from the bench, plus HG, but I don't think he should be a starter. Need to add dynamism in the midfield, hopefully add some creativity and pace the team needs as well. I agree with that. We do. We need creativity and we need pace. There's no doubt about it. Don't get me wrong, Bazza. I'm not putting my hopes only on the likes of players like Ward-Prowse. I think Ward-Prowse will be more a bench player than a starter. Josh, I wouldn't give Ward-Prowse a priority position. He has no creativity in him. The fans absolutely hated him under Potter, me included. And I get that. I understand that. But in the Championship, let's not forget, this is not the Premier League. This is Championship football. And a lot of these players, now with Ward-Prowse getting older, etc., Championship football could be their level. And we've got to accept that. Steve, good evening to you. I hope you're well. If we start the season with this squad, in my opinion, playoffs at best, we need a central centre half, creative midfielder, a left winger, and a 15-goal striker. Don't disagree. Absolutely don't disagree with that. But if we start the season with this squad, and if we end up in the playoffs, I'd take it. I'd want instant promotion. I'd want one of the top two places. But if we end up with the playoffs with this squad, I'd say we've done exceptionally well, to be quite honest with you. Trudge, got to bear in mind, it's easy to look technically good when people are not lunging in with crazy tackles and half fit. Yeah. And in the Championship, there are going to be players lunging in with crazy tackles. We know that that's going to happen. Bazza, sorry, Cornet is not at the races. Don't disagree. I don't disagree with that. I don't think Cornet is. Cornet won't stay. I think he will be one of those players that will go. I really do. Let's see who else we got here. Let's scroll down. Steve again. We have lost creativity in midfield in Fernandez and pace on the wing in Somerville. This needs to be addressed. Yeah, totally agree. Stephen, anybody here watching the AJ fight? No, unfortunately not. I'm afraid. When does that start? 8, Barley. Diouf will be okay in the Championship League. Just tell he's in the CL. He thinks he's Champions League. I think he's nowhere near that. Randy. Trudge, he can play there, but I do believe we'll sign a centre-back depending on who we get. Who did Trudge mention? Maybe Magassa can do it. Not maybe. Magassa played centre-back for Monaco before we signed him. He is by nature a centre-back. Alvarez, we've seen many times playing as a centre-back, especially for Mexico. But I still like to go and get us another centre-back, to be quite honest with you, especially now that we hear that Axel Disasi has chosen Crystal Palace. And why wouldn't he? I don't begrudge him that. I think Disasi has had a really bad couple of years. He's given himself a lot of confidence by coming to play for West Ham United. I don't begrudge him not wanting to drop down to the Championship. I wish he did, but I don't begrudge him what he's done. Graham, good evening, mate. How are you? This is the last time to get rid of the underperforming players. It absolutely rebuild time, both with players and mindset. Absolutely agree. Dads, Alvarez is dusted for me. Let him go to the MLS. He probably will go. If he wants to go, he probably will go. I don't think we'll keep him if he doesn't want to stay. I agree with that. Sorry for missing out. I can't read them all. I love to read them all, but I'm trying to get through as many comments as I can. Ibrahim, depends on the anguish being bored has caused him throughout his life. Anthony, do fans forget Moyes gave earthy games in the first team and looked good, even scored in the home game? He did, Anthony. I agree. I do agree with that. He did look good, but I just don't think he's good. I just don't think he's good enough. I love to say otherwise, but I don't think he is. Randy, Earthy feels like he can't get going because of his consistent injuries. That's another problem he's had as well. Probably expecting to be loaned or sold, or his contract runs down. Yeah, I think he'll be sold, unfortunately. Josh, excuse me. Whilst I do not want Ward-Prowse to start, I think his experience is important, just not important enough to be ahead of someone. Our big downfall with Potter was losing all the experience, Sufal, etc., etc. Yeah, he let all of them go in one go. Darkstar, good evening, mate. We're all good, mate. I hope you're well. Thank you for joining as well. Who else we got? Ibrahim. For all we know, Nuno may have lost the love of his life because due to boredness, so it might have been a real stinger for Nuno. Anthony, I wouldn't buy academy players who left West Ham. They made their beds. Well, I'd bring Mabama back. I think I would. I think I'd bring Mabama. He's had experience in playing for Stoke in the Championship. He knows where the goal is. He did all right. He didn't do too badly. He's a strong lad. I'd bring him back. Let's scroll down. Who else have we got? The West Ham Massive. Good evening to you, mate. How are you? Nice to bump into you at Stevenage. Great to bump into you as well, mate. I hope you're well. Are you going to Glasgow? I'd love to, but it's far, far too expensive, because you can't get there. You can go there and back on the same day. Look, the Commonwealth Games are on there, and we were looking at where we could stay, and it was ridiculous. But have a great time there. I wish I was going, but have a great time there, mate. English Yardie. I'm not at any of Nuno's training sessions, but he should be molding these young players. The talent is there, but something isn't clicking with the younger players under Nuno. I don't know, I disagree with that, English Yardie. You think about, the false dawns we've had with a lot of the academy players over the years. We knew, you've only got to look at as far back as Moyes. Pre-season, David Moyes had a load of youngsters going out, going on the tours, etc., pre-season tours and all that. But then when push comes to and he played a lot of the youngsters in dead rubbers, admittedly, but he played a lot of the youngsters in some of the European games and so on to give them experience. But they haven't broken through. This is my point about the youngsters. You can blame West Ham United for not developing them, but then they go to other clubs and you think, okay, so now he's gone to Man City, he's gone to this club, he's gone to that club and the other. And then you kind of look out for them and think, okay, what's going to happen to them? If they're not breaking through there, then it isn't just Moyes, is it? And then you look at when we got Potter in. Under Lopetegui, I don't remember many youngsters being in pre-season training, maybe one or two, but not as many as were under Moyes. So forget Lopetegui. Then Potter came in and was like, great, this is it for the youngsters. We know Graham Potter develops youngsters. And look what happened there. He hardly used them. He hardly had, he did nothing with them. Absolutely no. He discarded so many of them. So yeah, there's a point to be made that maybe the youngsters are not being developed. But when they go off to pastures new, you kind of look out for them and you go, okay, maybe they'll improve if they go to this club, that club, and the other. But none of them have. Like I said, a lot of them have made a career out of playing football. And that in itself is an achievement. If you can still come through an academy and then play football, whatever league it is, whatever level of league, and you're earning money from it, I think that is an achievement. But playing senior football in the Premier League, very rare. Declan Rice as a prime example, Frank Lampard as a prime example, Rio Ferdinand as a prime example, Joe Cole. But these players are few and far between. We had a golden era around the Ferdinand, the Lampard, the Joe Cole era, all those players coming through more or less at the same time. But how often does that happen? You look at Man United, they're academy players that came through all at the same time and how incredibly well they did. But they're one in a million. They can't, those things don't happen on a regular basis. And so you look out for these players. And when it doesn't happen for them in the Premier League, then you kind of go, well, maybe we're not the experts. Maybe the likes of Moyes and the other managers probably know an awful lot more than we do when it comes to developing these youngsters. Who else have we got here? 100 Joules. I don't know what that is, but congratulations, Gary. I hope you're well, mate. Thanks for joining. Who else we got here? English Yardie. Nuno's coaching, very suspect. Also the tactics. We have good young players. Just mold them into what you want, Nuno. Well, look, he's given them a chance. This is their opportunity. We're playing in the Championship this season, and this is their opportunity. If they can impress in pre-season and become part of that regular squad. Like, don't forget what I said earlier on. They don't have to be part of the senior squad. As under 21s, they can still be called upon. So if you start seeing the likes of Lewis Orford, Colin Beckis, players like that on the bench on a regular basis, they've done something right in pre-season. Tony, good evening, mate. I hope you're well. The younger players need a run of games, not just one game here and there. Myers looked better every game he played. I agree with that. And I think that's why as I said earlier on, Myers will become a regular feature in this senior squad. I think Scars would. I don't know about Potts. I think Potts will, and let's hope one or two others as well. Le Madrid, I think, will as well. Ibrahim, good evening to you. Oh, no, I've said good evening already. Hull are in the Premier League, but I doubt they can match us for wages. What's the Hull story? Dark Star, if Hull beats us to any players, that will be embarrassing. But will it, though? Well, as Ibrahim has said, they're in the Premier League, so players will be looking at Premier League rather than playing in the Championship. I don't know. Stephen, West Ham need to spend money before Championship starts. We may not. I think we're going to have to just, let's not forget the Championship starts on August the 16th or whatever date it starts on. But the transfer window doesn't close until the 1st of September. We may not have bought in. I think something will happen next week. But then I've been saying that for the last 3 weeks. But I think something is got to happen next week. But don't be surprised if we do not have any players signed before we kick off. But I think by the end of the transfer window, we will have new players in. I'm convinced by that. Mark, they once had Robertson, Maguire, and Snoddy. West Ham massive. In my opinion, we should only employ managers, head coaches who are contractually obligated to give opportunities to academy players. People say it's impossible, but do Athletic Bilbao do this? I can't agree with that, to be honest with you. I'm not saying it's the wrong thing, but I can't agree with it. What would happen? Let's say, for example, you put 5 academy players in your squad and they just don't do it for you. What then? When you could have gone out and bought yourself, the best player in the Championship for the left wing role or centre back role, etc. This is where we've got to be really careful. Like I've said, academy players, the ones that really break through, are few and far between. Have we got to admit that potentially academy players from European teams or teams overseas are better than our academy players? We might have to admit that as well. I get the logic, but I'm not sure that would work, to be honest with you. Steve, also Carrick at that time as well. And the fullbacks whose name eludes me before sliding off to Chelsea. Well, Johnson, he went to Chelsea. He was very good. Stephen, Nuno has his trusty number 2 with him this time. Successful everywhere they were together. Yep. I've forgotten his name. Silva is his surname. Josh. It won't be embarrassing if Hull get players over us. Putting yourself in the window in the Premier League is what plenty players do. It's the unfortunate reality. I agree with that. West Ham done that one. Randy, excuse me a sec. GP striker. Striker will be up there as a priority for positions we need to sign. Hopefully we can get the squad sorted. I agree. Ibrahim, the board aren't going to force a manager to play players who aren't good enough. That's the sad truth. That's a sad truth. West Ham massive. Opportunities do not equal positive outcomes. What I mean is we should always have 2 or 3 academy players on the bench. Let's put this in perspective, though, West Ham massive. Ollie Skulls, Ezra Myers, Freddie Potts. That's 3 already. I think in addition to them, Finley Herrick will be our 3rd choice keeper. La Madrid is another. That's 5, and there is another one. And his name will come to me. That's 5 academy. That's 5 players that have been in our academy that will be in the squad this season. I'm pretty convinced of that. Finley Herrick, 3rd choice keeper. Freddie Potts, Ezra Myers in defence. Who else did I say? La Madrid in midfield. And there was someone else. And Freddie Potts in midfield as well. That's 5 players. That's not bad. That's not bad. We've achieved way more than what many would have thought in bringing academy players through. That's not a bad achievement. But then the counter argument could be, well, you had so many academy players in the squad last season. It's probably one of the reasons why you went down. Someone could easily turn around and say that. And I just did. It's tiny, what are they called? The IPAs, tiny, whatever. Fuck me, my memory is gone. Tiny curl or something like that. Very nice, very fruity. What else we got there? That's my tipple. Thank you, Stephen. Troj, I think the best we can do is appoint a manager who has history in bringing through youngsters. Let's see what Nuno does. Foxes, good evening to you, mate. I hope you're well. Oh, Kante is the other one. Completely forgot. Kante is the other one. So that's 6 academy players. Orford is not bad. Will he make it through? I don't know. Let's see what happens. Randy, GP, there are strikers out there that can fill the void we're looking for. Hopefully we can go and get one. Need to hope our squad has been improved by the end of the window. Hopefully we'll have the depth we need. I trust that we will have the depth we need. I do. Ibrahim, that would be stepping on the manager's toes. As an employer, I'd be very wary of doing that to force them into playing players. Stephen, Kante, Orford, Myers, Le Madrid, Potts, yeah, name them. I'm going to go through them again. I think Finley Herrick will become our third choice keeper. That's one. Myers and Scarles in defence. They're both from the academy. Freddie Potts, Le Madrid, and Kante. 6 players from the academy. That's not bad. Stephen, do you think Alphonse Areola plays in the Championship next season? Do you know what? He pulled off some fantastic saves on Wednesday night, kind of reminding me, you know my feelings on Alphonse Areola. I think he's a better keeper than Hermansen. You know, I don't think that Areola should have been dropped. But no, unfortunately, I think Areola will leave before the transfer window shuts. He's on about 120 grand a week. That's a lot of money, all right. So that's been hard, but to that 60 grand a week, how is he going to live on 60 grand a week? Eh? I mean, come on. But I think, unfortunately, he will be sold. West Ham massive. Yes, I agree. We have recently. I'm not saying we haven't. I mean, this really should be a principle we maintain throughout. Again, just my opinion. The bottom line really is West Ham massive. If they're good enough, they'll be in the senior squad. That's it. If they're good enough, they'll be in the senior squad. Graham, Potts has yet to prove to me that he's good enough for the first team, but I hope that I'm wrong. Championship. You know, he played really well in the Championship when he went out on loan twice. And so we're playing in the Championship next season. So you see him having a role. But I agree with you. In the Premier League, I wasn't sure about him. Michael, good evening to you. Sullivan is playing hardball. He would sell and only at the right price for him. Predictable and, as usual, a limited approach from him. We've known this. Good evening to you, Michael. Thank you for joining as well. Tony, I think the stats was 96 players that went through the French academy system were in the World Cup. Maybe England need to go back and look at the junior system being used. Didn't know that. West Ham massive. We can debate this at the supporters club still. I'll buy you whatever beverage you want. Thank you, mate. That'd be really appreciated. Who else have we got here? Pierre, how are you, mate? Golombekis, Ajala, Fearon. I like Golombekis, I like Ajala, and I like Fearon. It won't surprise me if all 3 went out on loan next season. I know that's not what you want to hear, but it won't surprise me. I like Ajala. He's nimble. He's nifty. He's got good pace on him. You know, he's been made to go out and play on the left-hand side. I would have liked to have seen him playing up front. That's his natural role. But those 3 players will not surprise me if all 3 go out on loan next season. English Yardie, the academy players overseas don't have to compete with the Premier League. For me, the academies in other countries have it more easy because they don't have the Premier League. But then they come to the Premier League and a lot of them do really well. Foxes, I heard Luton put a bid in for Ward-Prowse and Kilman. I haven't heard that, but I'll be interested to catch up. You know what? Let's finish off and look at the latest news. So what do we have? Let's go into my trusted source there. What have we got? Somerville. Is that not being updated? Surely that's up to date. There we go. Report suggests step championship. Let's see. What does that say? So the headline is report suggests championship debut awaits West Ham young star in the making. How apt, how appropriate that we're talking about the academy players at this moment in time. So who are they referring to? Don't pay too much attention to the friendlies. Familiar caution, especially in West Ham have several players still on late for return from the World Cup, blah, blah, blah. Max Gilman was the only senior defender on show against Stevenage with Dinos Mavropanos rested. Step forward, Aridas Golombekis. Preferred to the more experienced Caden Casey. Yeah. Clearly, Nuno has put faith in the young defender. I think Golombekis will be... that's one of the latest stories out at the moment that expect him to make his debut in the Championship. Golombekis. I don't know. There's another story coming up. What does that say? Now it has to go slow, doesn't it? When I'm live, there we go. This is all about. West Ham make a big decision. If I can get rid of all the bloody adverts. West Ham made a big decision about a 28-year-old. Good decision for West Ham. West Ham are putting a fresh contract offer. We know this. Konstantinos Mavropanos. People were asking why was he not available. Some saying he was rested. Others saying there's a few players that were ill at the game against Stevenage. But whatever way, apparently we put in a bid, a new contract offer for him to stay. We know this. It's not new. Why does that come out on Saturday? West Ham linked with the player. Should I? Oh, go on then. I'll give you this one. This is a transfer story, so don't blame me. I'm not. I'm only saying what's in front of me. How Nuno Espirito Santo could finally replace Pablo Fornals at West Ham amid Rio Hatate latest. I'm sure you've heard about the 3 players that we're after from Celtic, and it's pushing it. The Spaniard is a cult hero at West Ham, blah, 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 blah. And Fornals left the Premier League in 2024 and all that sort of stuff, etc., etc. Replacing a player like that is difficult and so on and so forth. And why Rio Hatate could be the next Pablo Fornals. I think he's a good player, Rio Hatate, but I can't put look, if we go in for Rio Hatate, I think that would be great. Do I think it will happen? I'm not so sure. Niels Koppen, yes, okay. He was in Scottish football for a while when he was at Rangers. Yeah, so he'll know a little bit about players like Hatate. But I think we're going to be looking at the Belgian league and Norwegian leagues and Dutch leagues, etc., to bring in some players, I think. West Ham issue hands off to about Malik, blah, blah, blah. That's it. There's your latest updates. There you go. I've just brought you up to date on not a lot of news at all. People just regurgitating what's already been said. West Ham massive still apologies. You have covered it. How concerned are you with lack of reinforcements? I'm not yet. I'm not. I have covered it, and I know people are getting anxious. I get it, but I'm not. Like I keep saying, the transfer window is open until the 1st of September. We've got a whole month before we start panicking. Look, I do think the game against Rangers, I think is going to be an interesting one on Sunday. I think it's going to give Nuno a lot more answers to some of the players in the squad that he currently has, and I think we've got irons in the fire. No pun intended. And Nuno himself has said, be patient, where we are working on bringing in players. We will get players. Will we get enough players before the season starts? Probably not. Will we get enough players before the transfer window shuts? I think we do. Stephen, how many players sign under Nuno in the Championship next season? How many players sign under Nuno? Don't know. At the moment, none. But I reckon we'll get about 4. What happened to the poll? That's a really good question. What did happen to the poll? I completely forgot I put that out. Where is it? Let's go to stop the poll. Does it give me an answer here? I'll go back into the chat. I completely forgot. So the poll, does it give me an answer there? Show the poll. Right. So there we are. Well, that doesn't tell me anything. Where's the numbers? Let's go into the chat and see if the numbers are in the poll. See if the poll is in the chat. No, it's not. So what was the point of that? So I've got this facility to create a poll, and it doesn't give me the result. So what was the point of that? Well, I won't be doing that again. So yeah, I'm gonna go back in. Let me see if I can find the results of the poll. Does it give me an answer anywhere? No, it doesn't give me an answer. So that was completely and utterly pointless. See, I started a poll What do you feel about Sullivan's recent statement? Surprised, not surprised, conned, or he's not got any day-to-day influence, so I don't care. And it hasn't given me the results. So that was completely, and sorry about that, completely and utterly pointless. So I won't be doing that again anytime soon. Good evening to you, Daz. I hope you're well. Dark Star. We need to get back up first. We need to get back up first time of asking, or we could be stuck there for a while. Yeah, I've said it. I've suggested it. It could happen that we might be in that championship. Look, you know what's good is the playoffs have been extended to 6 teams now. We will finish in that. We will, I want us to finish in the top 2, but we will definitely finish in the top 6. Tops, top 8. I definitely think we will. And then the whole thing about the playoffs, it's who knows what could happen then. English Yardie. Still, the younger players overseas are coming to the Premier League because they are given an opportunity to showcase their talent in other countries. English players aren't being given that opportunity. I get that. I understand that. And I get what you meant earlier on about they haven't got the Premier League to contend with. But then they've still got to do it in the Premier League. If they're good enough for Premier League teams to sign, they think they're going to be good enough in the Premier League. But yeah, it's a good point. Good point. Who else we got? Paul was not posted still. The poll was not posted. Oh, was it not? How did it? Do you know what? I'm going to have another go. So, new poll. Does this work? Yes. No. Create. Start and show. Does that now show? No, it doesn't. So something's going wrong there. So yeah, I've just started another poll. Show comments on stage. Yeah, no. There you go. Doesn't work. Forget the polls. I'll go back to doing polls on the YouTube platform from now on. Stop the poll. Forget that one as well. Right. What else have we got here? Josh. Personally, I do not think we're going to walk it like people are suggesting. Then again, Burnley smashed it the last time and they were down and were terrible last season. I think we will come back up, but I don't think it will be easy. Richard, good evening to you. Without a larger squad, injuries could be a concern, which has been a huge downfall in previous seasons. Good evening, mate, to you as well. Pierre, young players from abroad are given more chances than homegrown youth. Is it because, I don't know, the squads are smaller? Is that why they get more chances? I don't know. Right. I'm done. It's 9 o'clock. I'm going to have a late dinner. I can smell the food already, and I know the other half has already eaten without me. People, it's been an absolute pleasure. An impromptu show, but thank you so much for joining in. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. And thank you to those who have become subscribers tonight. I'll be back. There'll be more stories. Don't worry about us not getting any players in yet. We will eventually sign players. We will be ready may not be ready for the start of the season, but we'll certainly be ready for the remaining 46 games that we've got. Randy, is there anything different you want to see in the Rangers game tomorrow? Not really. Maybe a bit consistency. Maybe sort of seeing a few of the senior players playing to demonstrate, to see what more they can do. And I know that means the younger players might not get a chance to start, but they will be on the subs bench, and they will get game time. Charge our youth don't get it to toughen up versus adults. That's why Marshall Kelly did so well at first thought, and then they played against adults. Let me read that again. Our youth don't get to toughen up against adults. That's why Marshall and Kelly did so well at first, I thought, as they had played against adults. Marshall, another interesting player. He did really, really well playing out in the Bundesliga in Germany. But will he make it? Again, I'm not sure. Look, people, thank you very much. I really, really do appreciate it. Those of you who are not subscribers, click on that, become a subscriber. Costs nothing to subscribe. Have a wonderful rest of the weekend. I will be back, maybe with another impromptu show. Who knows? But in the meantime, have a wonderful evening, and I'll see you all soon.